So this news came out the other day and I was completely blindsided by it. I couldn't believe what I was reading when I saw this headline. It said, Bethesda announces Indiana Jones video game and it could be an Xbox exclusive. First of all, I have been hoping and wanting a new Indiana Jones game for so long. I've been saying for a while that my dream game is like a AAA Indiana Jones game developed by either like Naughty Dog because of their experience on Uncharted, which is basically a ripoff of Indy, or my first pick would have been Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, who did the Tomb Raider games. Anytime I was playing those games, I was just imagining how much better I think they would be if you were playing as Indy. But this is like the most surprising news of this year so far. It's the most surprising news in the gaming industry since a couple months back when the Hitman developers announced they were making a Bond game. So let's take a look at what this article says. Bethesda Softworks has announced a new Indiana Jones video game in a short teaser video shared on social media. The as-yet untitled game will feature a wholly original story centered around Harrison Ford's iconic whip-cracking archaeologist. Yeah, it's like perfect timing because there's a new movie coming out in a couple years. Or, no, actually at this point I think it might be next year. It was going to be this year, but they had some problems finding a director because Spielberg dropped out, and I kind of expected a new indie game. And I'm hoping they're going to make like an updated new Lego Indiana Jones for that movie too. Bethesda, the company behind the popular Fallout and Elder Scrolls franchises, yeah, and some recent turds like Fallout 76, but let's just forget about that thing existing, wrote on Twitter, a new Indiana Jones game with an original story is in development from our studio at Machine Games and will be executive produced by Todd Howard in collaboration with Lucasfilm Games. So that's pretty exciting. Machine Games are the ones that developed the rebooted Wolfenstein series. And personally, I loved the first one, Wolfenstein The New Order. I do think the second one took a dip in quality. And then don't even get me started on how bad Youngblood was. But I wonder if this means we are not going to get Wolfenstein 3? I would be pretty sad about that because I wanted to see the conclusion to that story. Maybe they're waiting, or maybe that this is going to come after Wolfenstein 3, or they're just not making a third one. I don't know. We'll have to see the order in which they come out. I have the feeling that this has been in development for a little bit because they're probably wanting to release it around the time of the movie. So if that's the case, they only got about a year left of development. So, but I didn't peg a studio like Machine Games to want to do something like Indiana Jones. That's interesting. And Todd Howard being executive producer on it is pretty interesting too. And then they said it'll be some time before we have more to reveal, but we're very excited to share today's news. So we don't know how long that could be. Could be 6 months, could be a year, who knows. So I didn't see this because I recently got rid of my Twitter, but on their Twitter it said they had a message, and it says, the message followed a short video in which a camera pans over CGI recreations of several famous Indiana Jones artifacts, while the franchise's theme can be heard in the background. So I haven't watched it, but I assume it like pans over the Grail and like the Shankara stones from the second movie and the cross from Last Crusade and the Ark of the Covenant and the idol. And hopefully not the Crystal Skull. Let's just pretend that movie doesn't exist. So here's the tweet. It says, a new Indiana Jones game with an original story is in development from our studio Machine Games. Blah, 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 blah. I just read that. Oh, wait a minute. Now that I think about it, Machine Games are the perfect ones to make an indie game. It didn't even occur to me before, but the whole premise of those games are to kill Nazis. And that's literally what Indy does in all the movies, well, except for the fourth one, which are Russians. And Wolfenstein the Old Blood, which is like the spin-off that came out after the first game, is basically an indie game, if you really think about it. BJ Blazkowicz goes through like this haunted castle that's kind of reminiscent of the castle from Last Crusade. And there's old artifacts and like Nazi gold and stuff you can collect. So yeah, it didn't even occur to me that if you really think about it, Machine Games are basically a perfect fit. Oh, that just made me even more excited. But yeah, this is really exciting for me. I've been clamoring for an indie game for so long because like I'd be playing Tomb Raider and be like, and you find an artifact and you like spin it around in your hands and get clues from it. And I was just saying while playing it, like, this would be so cool if this was an indie game. Go on side quests that are based on the movies, have to use clues and hunt down artifacts. It'd be really cool. And it's been so long since a non-Lego Indiana Jones game. I think the last Indiana Jones game, period, was Lego Indy 2, and I think that was 2011, maybe even earlier than that. But a non-Lego game, it's been even longer. Yeah, it says Indiana Jones has been the subject to several video games in years past, including the PS2 era Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb from 2003. and Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings, which released on the Wii, DS, PSP, and PS2 in '09. So yeah, it's been basically a decade plus since we've had anything like this. An Indiana Jones film sequel is currently in development, with Ford set to reprise the role of death-defying academic Dr. Henry Jones Jr. It's a shame that we lost Sean Connery. We could have. I remember reading that he said that the one thing that would have got him out of retirement would have been playing Henry Jones Jr. again. But then the garbage fourth movie just killed him off screen, and they just show a picture of him. But if they made a fifth one and it took place between 3 and 4, they could have brought him back. But oh well, it sucks. 3 is my favorite of the films by far. And then it finishes with, it was announced last year that Bethesda is being acquired by Microsoft, leading some to speculate that the forthcoming Indiana Jones game could be released exclusively on Xbox consoles, as Xbox is owned by Microsoft. And then Xbox boss Phil Spencer suggested to Bloomberg last year that the matter of console exclusivity on future games would be determined on a case-by-case basis. Machine Games is a Swedish developer best known for the Wolfenstein series. It has been owned by Bethesda's parent company, ZeniMax Media, since 2010. Yeah, so odds are it could be exclusive, and I think that'd be a pretty big get if they are like, well, you can't play this game unless you have an Xbox. It's fine for me because I got one. The timing of this announcement was interesting because it was right after the Star Wars YouTube channel put out a video about Lucasfilm games, and it was just kind of them recapping and showing their legacy of all their games they've done. To be honest, they should have a list showing all the games that Disney killed that weren't released. But it was no coincidence that these announcements were back to back. I might make a separate video about that, talking about how Lucasfilm Games is kind of seemingly ramping back up. It's not called LucasArts anymore still, but they're kind of putting their foot down saying, yeah, we're going to be making games for this new generation. And hopefully that means EA doesn't have a stranglehold over their IP. I don't want only EA to be stuck making those games. But yeah, what do you guys think about a new Indiana Jones game? I could not be more psyched for it. Like I said, it's been something I've been clamoring for years. Cross our fingers and hope that the 5th movie is good. And if this comes out like the year of or the year after that, then hopefully it's pretty good as well. I have faith in Machine Games, even though I did think Wolfenstein 2 wasn't as good. And like I said, Youngblood's really bad. Do you think this will come out after a potential Wolfenstein 3 or before? Or do you think we'll just not get a third one? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments what you think about this kind of crazy news to start out the year. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.